Hi again, Rick Prescott here to talk about my book, Save the Beatles. And in this quick video, I just want to talk a little bit about what the assembly process looks like, how the fused albums actually get created, and what the real basic principles of assembly are. And what you learn in the book is that when George Martin sequenced the classic Beatles albums, he started with sorting the tracks by quality. And he could be brutal. He decided which ones were the highest quality and which ones were the medium and which ones were the lowest. He decided which tracks would go on the albums and which would become singles. He often had to negotiate with the egos so that sometimes songs that weren't as good, or at least he thought weren't as good, but he knew had to go on the album, he would figure out the right place to put it so that it sounded as good as it could possibly be. A classic example of that is I Love You Too from Revolver, which George Martin was not in favor of putting on the album, but eventually figured out exactly the right place to put it so that it actually sounds fantastic when it might have sounded foreign if it had been in the wrong place. That's a story that I don't tell exactly, but we talk about how he made those decisions. So he picked out the best tracks. He decided which track was the track that was hardest to follow, and he put that at the end of the album. He picked out the track that set the best tone and was generally up-tempo and catchy and commercial, and he put that at the beginning of the album. And so he did those two pieces first, the last song on the album, the first song on the album. Now, if you think of the classic Beatles albums, you'll realize that the last songs were probably pretty easy to figure out. A Day in the Life, Tomorrow Never Knows, you know, the end. These are ones that are pretty easy to figure out. The openers a little bit harder, but again, once you understand what he was looking for, it all makes pretty good sense about how he actually did that. Then he did the and I in the book I call those pole tracks. Now he didn't call those pole tracks, but I think of the album as being like a tent, and the outer ones are the poles that hold it up. Inside, in the middle, the end of side 1 and the beginning of side 2, those are also pole tracks. And again, the end of side 1 had to bring the album, the side to a close without ending the album, and recognize that the album was going to be flipped. And I'll talk about this in another video, the importance of thinking of these as vinyl releases and not CD releases. But the album would be flipped, and that was enough time to kind of clear the air between the last track on side 1 and the first track on side 2, which then had to kind of reestablish what was going to happen on the album. Then, between those, on each side, the first and last song on each side, then he slotted things in, and he slotted things in according to a couple of simple rules. One of those was that you could have no more than 2 songs by the same songwriter in a row. Another was that you had to, the weakest tracks would end up in the middle of side 2, and that weaker tracks would end up in the middle of the sides either way, but the weakest ones went on side 2 in the middle. That beginnings and endings of tracks then determine how they fit together. And he treated it like a puzzle. He took the pieces and he laid them out, and we have some documentation of how he did that on some of the albums. And one of the things in the book I do is a proof of concept, where we kind of take what we know about what he said he did and apply it to the other classic albums and see if it matches. See if we can recreate the other classic albums by using the principles that he described elsewhere. It's a little bit complicated, but it's a fantastic look into how George Martin influenced the perception of the Beatles' music and how important that was to creating albums that would become timeless classics. Now, learning how to do that is, you know, we can never become George Martin. We can never know for sure what he would have done, because there are times when he does things that break his own rules, but he does it for a specific reason. So to a certain extent, again, this is a thought experiment, and you're trying to say, well, what if George Martin had Imagine and Uncle Albert, Admiral Halsey, and Going Down to Golders Green, and, oh boy, what other ones? Back Off Boogaloo. What would George Martin do with those tracks based on the rules that we know? You'll find that in this book, and it's a fascinating story. Save the Beatles, available now wherever you buy books, or visit SaveTheBeatles.com. I'm Rick Prescott. Thanks for watching.